This episode is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Today's patron of the day is Cammie. Patrons get the show always ad-free and access to the extended episode with bonus content. If you don't want to miss all that, go to patreon.com/calltheline. That is patreon.com/calltheline. Wow.
Wow.
Look at us go.
I fear you were perfect.
I'm going to do what Jimmy does and fade it out so we don't have to listen to this forever. You like that? That was not a good fade. Okay. Thank you so much. Welcome back to The Line Has a Podcast. I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Promise.
It is Friday, March 21st. And what are we going to yap about today?
We're missing Jimmy.
We are.
It feels really weird. It feels
it's just
very
the
weird.
girls.
I feel like I'm on my bike for the first time without training wheels. And it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But then I do feel like I still have one training wheel, which is you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep leaning to that side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. We're figuring it out. We're doing this together. And it might not be perfect, but that's okay. But even when Jimmy does it sometimes, he clicks the wrong thing and whatever, and it's fine.
True.
And we figure it out. And also, I think that the people of the line know us well enough from our time on Shoot Gum and our time doing this pod.
This is true.
They love us anyway, I think.
And Jimmy must think something of us if he's willing to hand over the reins. So
I know.
It just is a bit wild. Although I am enjoying the girls' night that we're getting to have.
Girls' night.
Girls' morning because
yes.
Friday the 21st.
Yes.
Early in the morning.
Very early. We are exhausted.
Exhausted,
but we had to be able to share this news with you today.
Yes.
We really did. I also think I was supposed to play podcast logo. What is that? I'm going to play it. Let's hear. Yeah, I was,
you did.
For sure.
Didn't you play that?
I played the intro.
Oh, but then Jimmy usually plays it. Guys, isn't this exciting that we're learning? But you played it.
We played it. See, Jimmy, it made it into the show, and that's what you wanted, okay?
He's right now watching this
He's
edit, and
shaking his head.
He is like, oh, God,
rolling.
We can't release it.
I know.
We're doing our best. We do have a question of the day. We at least have that together, which is Gen Z heading towards more conservative and traditional values? I saw somebody talking about this, funny enough, because they were talking about this whole idea of being cringe, which I always struggle with, and talking about how Gen Z is constantly making fun of millennials for being, quote, cringe and all of this. And this person was saying that they think, and they had all kinds of other reasons, but I just thought this particular thing they pointed out was interesting. Some of that is because there is this draw toward more conservative and traditional values where you have to fit molds more, you have to be a certain way, you have to be cool and look cool. I saw a video recently too talking about how Gen Z doesn't like to go out to the club because they don't know how to enjoy it and have fun and let go. And they're talking about when millennials would go out clubbing, we'd come home looking
a mess.
Unwell, an actual mess, but they don't want, everything is about aesthetics and looking a certain way, and that can kind of be a funnel into conservatism in a way, which is really interesting, and I'm not sure what I think about it, but I'm excited to hear some people let us know in the comments if they think that we're heading that way. I don't know, briefly, what do you think?
I think it's interesting to connect it to being worried about aesthetics, because it's I think conservative people have more of a fear of judgment than liberal people do, it seems. And so I totally see that. And I also saw another conversation happening where it was a high school choir teacher talking about how people don't even want to try out for parts in the choir or the musicals or whatever because they know that everything is being filmed all the time. And now all of this judgment comes home with you in a different way, obviously. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to think about the butterfly effect of all of everything, social media and whatever, and what it's created for people. So yeah, I guess it's possible, but it's interesting too because there's so much information out there that I don't know.
I know. Do you remember back in our MySpace, Facebook, I don't know if you had Zanga days, but I remember when Facebook first became a thing, we would make photo albums with like
yeah.
40 pictures that would just
yeah.
be like last night. It's just like there's no. And now my sisters will send like 4 to 5 photos in the group chat and be like, which one should I pick?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, post them all.
All
and they're
of
like,
them.
no, you have to pick the specific one, which now I've learned.
Yeah. It's very
Did you do
curated. Yeah, and when I
That's
was
the word.
on Facebook, I would have full albums, like literally it's just me and my friends, we went to the movies that night and we took a million pictures in like the lobby area of the movie theater. And then but I would always make the title of these albums like an inside joke from that night that doesn't make sense to
that
literally
was
anyone.
the thing, the inside jokes. I'm like
Yes.
going to my Facebook right now to pull up some of the album names because I bet they're, speaking of cringe, I bet they are so incredibly cringy.
Yeah.
Because you're right, that is how we would name them. But now, like, I think about it, and kids these days, you're right, they have to curate everything because everything is being overanalyzed so much. Oh my God, these... Oh, and the little, what do you call it? The little symbol, the like less than, greater than symbols that you put before and after. Obviously, this was a Lady Gaga album. This is me going to a baseball game with my family, and I put the album title as "I'm Your Biggest Fan. I'll follow you until you love me." So I am understanding a little bit about Gen Z making fun of millennials, but
oh my God,
man,
that is
really.
That is incredible. One of mine, I went to go see, what's it called? Sarah Bareilles, and she did a tour.
Love her.
Yeah, she did a tour. I think the album was called Kaleidoscope Heart. And so I went to go see that. So the album is just called Kaleidoscope Heart. But if you didn't know that was a Sarah Bareilles album, you'd be like, I wanted people to be like, that's prophetic.
wow.
Like, look at her, Kaleidoscope Heart. I love
that.
Like...
Oh, what were we thinking?
I don't know.
even know what some of these titles mean.
weren't.
I'll take a cheeseburger, please. That's the title to this album of...
How did
many
you spell
photos is
please?
this? 49 out.
Did you spell it normal?
I actually spelled it because think about me. I did spell it normal.
Okay.
But
Think about
PLZ
me.
would have been what I... I wasn't that cool, okay?
Oh my God. One of mine is just, I like vanilla milkshakes.
That's cute. This one is, pictures of myself, ... awkward. Haha. And it's the ... and awkward had like 4 D's at the end.
Oh my God.
And that was 53 photos. And they all are awkward photos of me. So, you know.
That is, I love that it's 53 photos just of you.
Yep. Now it's like, can I pick one?
Do you kiss dogs on the mouth?
I don't know. I don't think so. Certain
Like-
I used to kiss. I would let my dog Radio like give me a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's so old and his breath is
Awful.
so horrific that I
Yeah.
can't do it.
I like kissing his nose. Like, Astro has the best little nosy. I love
I
him.
think some people just have like higher disgust or lower disgust tolerance. I don't like it. Doesn't. I was a nanny. Nothing grosses me out at all. But I think the smell of like a bad dog breath, it stays on you, and that's my problem.
That's fair. I do like the idea of like you having been a nanny being why you can handle like a dog licking your face. You're like, grow up.
That's the least of my worries. I have like had someone projectile vomit into my eyes multiple times and just had to go about my day. So I have caught the amount of times I've caught vomit. Sorry to everybody that's hearing this.
I've done that.
Never
My
let us
dog
do this
Bonnie.
again. I've had to catch it in my hands. Yeah.
That's happened with Bonnie twice, where in the middle of the night I heard
Bonnie.
her like.
Oh God, I hate that. That is the worst sound to wake up to in the entire world.
I heard her, and what did I do? This. I was like,
that you're a better person than I am. I would have. That dog would have been like thrown outside instantly. Not on the rug.
I know.
Every time. Well, speaking of really disgusting things, we could start with our first news story. Minnesota GOP senator arrested for soliciting a minor. And let's talk about who this is. This is Senator Justin Eckhorn, I think is how you say it. He was arrested in Bloomington in a police sting operation. He allegedly attempted to solicit sex from a person he believed to be a 16-year-old girl. He is one of the co-authors of the Trump Derangement Syndrome mental illness bill. Shocking that it's not a drag queen, not a trans person. Again, it is a conservative white man trying to solicit sex from a minor. A good news, I guess kind of the good news is that fellow Republicans called for his immediate resignation. Felony charges are pending for soliciting a person under 18. Incident highlights ongoing issues of misconduct among elected officials because this is a pattern. This is something we keep seeing. I'm trying to remember what's his name that got caught for something very similar. Why am I forgetting his name?
I won't remember.
The guy
if you don't remember.
Anyways, it is almost like at this point, the more wild and conservative of a thing they're doing as far, like filing this bill for Trump derangement syndrome, you can kind of just assume that they're doing something really appalling and unethical and gross. The good news here is that he got caught, I guess, but
yeah. And it's also, like you said, when people are doing things that are already, like having this Trump derangement syndrome bill, mental illness bill, it just feels like your perception of the world and what you consider to be like normal and ethical is we're already on like a downward slope.
It's not looking good.
Right. Like what else are you doing that's not very ethical? And here it is. Soliciting sex from minors.
Yep. Which is really sad. I mean, he's got a whole entire family.
Right, of course.
And that's what we see. I am glad that we have fellow Republicans calling for his resignation because at this point, with everything they're doing, I'm shocked that they're not, speaking out saying that, he was targeted or something like that. But yes, really wild.
But it's also like, how could you even, I mean, they're going to find a way to justify it in some stupid idiot way where you're going to, like you said, he was targeted, they, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if in this whole process, which I'm sure that this is probably how they legally have to do this, that in the process, he's aware that she's a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, and fully aware.
Still fully pursued. Aware. Yeah, like that's whatever. There's no excuse.
Technically, he's just following biblical marriage guidelines, so.
Yuck.
That's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem. And that's my problem with any person that claims to be morally superior while claiming that they get their morals from the Bible, which I don't know that this person is specifically a Christian, although if I had to guess, I'm sure we can find that he's like some Christian values person. When they claim this moral superiority and like where you're getting your morals from has some of the worst examples of, quote, marriage or relationship dynamics. It's all about owning women and all of this. And this is the result. When people follow these, quote, traditional values, they're almost always, like you said, hiding something. Which, what's that you always quote? Is it that study you quote? You know what I'm talking about, where people that are more oppressed or like where they suppress certain things.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a study about sexual fantasies, and it was like, actually I have it in a note on
like more taboo topics, right? That's what they're
whatever
into.
Is taboo for them is what they're going to be sexually is more likely to be a sexual fantasy. So Republicans are more likely to fantasize about things like infidelity, group sex, like sex with multiple partners in general. There was like, oh wait, here it is. I'll tell you exactly what it is.
I'm so excited.
Compared to Democrats, Republicans are more likely to fantasize about sexual activities that are typically considered immoral, like infidelity and orgies, or taboo, like voyeurism. My research suggests, this is a direct quote from the book, my research suggests that the more political and moral restrictions we have placed on our sexuality, the more intensely we fantasize about breaking them. And that is from Tell Me What You Want by, I think it's Justin L. Miller. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Big shock there. Well, and
Right.
I wasn't able to find other sources for this, but I did just find that senator's Facebook page where one of his posts is a post about Easter saying he is risen, the Son of God lives. May the promise of Jesus Christ's resurrection bring you hope. Wishing you and your family a blessed Easter. Meanwhile, he's talking to underage girls. So,
Wait.
Shocking.
Wait, I want to comment on that so bad. I am going to comment on that. I'm going to find his Facebook right now, and I'm going to comment on that and say, you're a pedophile.
I'm sure it's been shut down. I was able to find like a shot of it, but really wild.
Damn.
On that note, should we take a break before we get to our next story, which is where we're going to talk about Trump dismantling the Department of Education. Which is so wild that that's even a headline, but...
Love to hear it. Yep. Can't wait to do it again.
After the break.
After this break. See that? You don't get songs when Jimmy is here.
Well, yeah, we do.
I guess we do.
But not beautiful ones like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's more than one musician in this podcast. Definitely not. Wow. Songs really make you think, huh?
This episode is brought to you by the amazing people on patreon.com/calltheline, where you can get the show ad-free and you get the extended episodes where we do bonus shows, which is most of the time. Head over to patreon.com/calltheline and sign up today. Would you like to be one of the cool people who can
Okay.
All right. We're back from our break. And we have such exciting news to discuss. Trump has issued an executive order to dismantle the education department, which so many things can be true at once. We can have some things that we need to address about our education system, and also it's absolutely insane what he's doing and that people are supporting this. But things to know about this, this is an order that aims to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education within 120 days, which, of course, that's what he's trying to do. This is part of what he was campaigning on. Crazy, absolutely wild. It's part of broader efforts to reduce federal government size and influence, of course, is what they're saying. This would turn things over primarily to the states, which is how we would end up with places like Arkansas probably teaching creationism. Right. It raises concerns about impact on federal education programs and funding for obvious reasons, and could lead to disparities in education quality across states. That's one of the biggest issues that we have here, is we're going to see major differences in education from state to state. They're trying to say it's just going to give more control to local governments. That's one of my problems with it.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that. I think this is one of the most upsetting things to me recently that I've heard. Because I think it's a legitimate issue as far as how education in the U.S. works. I think it's something that absolutely can be revamped. We're behind so many other countries.
Yeah.
But this is going to, from what I've learned about it, it's basically going to apply dollar amounts to students. Mm-hmm. And so that student can, or their parents can decide that with that dollar amount from government funding, they can now just go use it toward a Christian private school instead, or toward homeschool or whatever. And so there's no checks and balances as far as what kind of education these kids are going to be getting. And the claim is that it's like to reduce indoctrination and all of this, which calling education for, basic things indoctrination is really wild. But it's going to end up causing more of that. It's going to end up causing the states that have a worse standing on education levels to continue that way and probably get significantly worse. Trump loves the uneducated, though. So this will work in his favor if he's able to continue it.
Yeah. And I also wonder, if the dollar amount is going to have anything to do with how much money each state is contributing with their taxes. I'm curious, because my mind is going there, because I'm wondering if the states that are already suffering in education are going to disproportionately...
Correct. Okay. That's exactly what will happen. Yeah, that's the big concern. And then you have, like I said, states like Arkansas who have already been advocating in different parts to teach things like creationism in school. And if the state decides that that's something they want to allow, then they can just all decide that that's the kind of education you're getting. So what that will end up having is a lot of people moving for better education if they have the privilege to do that and they have the money to do that. And then we just repeat this cycle worse and worse and worse, where poverty leads to less education, which leads to more poverty, which leads to more voting for against your own best interests, apparently, because I think that's a big part of what got us here. When you don't have the information or the time to even be able to go educate yourself on who to vote for or who's actually looking out for you, then of course that stuff like this is going to happen. If you're just trying to pay the bills and you can barely do that and you can barely afford any kind of education, this is where we land.
Yeah. So sad. And the effect of this for those children is going to follow them for the rest of their life. Like, they will forever have lost out on fundamental years or years of fundamental education, like, where, especially the ones that are little. Like, I remember when I was in elementary school, they were trying a different way of teaching math. And they do that sometimes, where, like, the state will require just, like, a slightly different way of teaching, like, division or whatever. And the whole state has to comply with whatever that plan is. But then my whole grade suffered in math, like, literally always. Aside from the people who naturally got it, we had larger classes in the, like, the smaller groups that needed more support. We had bigger groups of those, because we needed more support, because that whatever that method was didn't work. And that's in a place where we had a Department of Education. And also in New York. Can you fucking imagine?
Yep. Yeah, I think depending on how far they go with this, it's going to have a really awful impact. And it's really, you're right, like, ultimately it comes down to the kids. That's who's going to be impacted. And it's really sad. Then you have, which, call me Tim Waltz because I love to talk about Finland. Then you have countries like Finland where you don't even have private Christian school. That's not a thing. And they're getting actual education, and they're ranked really high. I can't remember exactly where they're ranked on education, but higher than us. So it's not like it can't be done. Other countries have shown us that you can provide a good education for kids, and it can be paid for, not just for kids, for adults. You can continue providing education, and it doesn't need to come out of their own pocket in that way. That's what taxes are supposed to cover.
Right.
And now they're just trying to completely get rid of it. It's scary. Any other thoughts on that before our next story?
No.
Just more bad
news. Is WWE lady out then? Does that mean she loses her job?
One would only hope, but I think she's in charge of something. Something else. I'm not remembering how that all works, but
wonderful.
I'm sure they'll find use of her. Next thing that we have that Trump's trying to shut down, because that's pretty much either Trump or Elon is just let's shut everything down, and then also do, like, way too much at the same time. Trump administration is shutting down Voice of America. If you don't know what this is, it is, from what I've understood, Voice of America is basically U.S. international broadcasting services that it's not meant for Americans. It's meant for other countries, specifically where they're maybe not getting quality journalism. They're not having access to proper news. And it's been there to kind of support the U.S. and not having misinformation spread. For instance, having, which is the concern, which that shutting it down means that countries like Russia can now come in with propaganda about the U.S. because now we don't have Voice of America, and they're kind of doing our own thing. I heard, Katie Couric was talking a lot about this. A lot of these top journalists are not happy. They're very concerned. Not just because of technically shutting down Voice of America and how that's a problem, but just the implications, and it shows Trump wanting to take over media. And that is probably, if we're actually really looking at everything, one of the scariest things is his attempt to, which is what he's been doing and clearly how he kind of got into office now, just this complete takeover of media. I was watching Fox News because I hate myself, I guess, to prep for some of this. And just, like, being reminded of what other people are hearing, it's absolutely insane. I don't know if you ever catch any of that stuff, but...
I don't watch Fox News as much as I'll watch, like, things on YouTube of, like, Like we were talking about that Sam Seder
Yeah.
debating 20 conservatives. Like I'll watch
Mm-hmm.
things like that because I think it's important to just like I'm curious
To hear
what
what there's,
information.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I get to a point where I'm like, am I just rage baiting myself? Am I just like creating the worst like unhealthy pattern? But I think it is important to know like I just like will never forget that one guy who was saying that DEI programs help government agencies get tax
Oh
breaks.
my God.
That was the craziest thing I've ever
I can't. How do you,
um
and watching Sam just try to,
he was like I actually don't know what to say
right.
to that.
Because
Um
watching somebody just kind of say things and then just completely miss. But
yeah.
that's the problem. That's how I felt watching Fox News. It was just, and it's not like I don't feel that sometimes watching something like CNN. I don't, that's
Mhm.
why those aren't my news sources.
Mhm.
But I mean, the level to compare CNN and Fox News at this point is just, you can't.
Yeah.
The level of batshittery I was hearing was wild.
Yeah, I can't imagine. You are a stronger woman than me because I don't think I could sit and watch it. I
Well,
really don't.
I was watching it because, which we can move elegantly into our next story
Wow.
now. Look
Look at
at
that
this.
transition.
Jimmy, I'm trying.
Gorgeous.
Which Jimmy and I were actually talking about on the phone when was this? A couple of days ago. Elon Musk's interview with Sean Hannity. Did you watch any of this?
No, I didn't even know that he did an interview with him. And
I
I'm
mean, that's what he
so
does.
scared.
Like, apparently they call Hannity and they're like, help us, we need to talk to people. And you know me, I'm usually the one that's like, don't make fun of somebody else and don't make fun of the way. Listening to him whine and complain, so much of it was him just whining about, I don't understand why people are upset with me, blah, blah.
Oh, fuck out of here.
No,
Get the
I
hell
know.
out of here.
Well, he was on there to discuss Tesla and his role in the Trump administration. And then he's talking about, well, I mean, people want to kill me now and blaming Democrats. He kept talking about I thought it's supposed to be the empathetic left, but then they're over here like shooting bullets into Teslas and, lighting them on fire and all, because there's been all of those protests. And he said that Tesla is a peaceful company and portrayed himself as a victim of political attacks. He even hinted at there being a larger source or a larger thing at hand here, very conspiratorial, very much like George Soros is coming after me kind of vibes. And, he was on there talking about the Doge department, which I can't believe, I refuse to believe that there's something called the Doge department.
I know.
Which we keep calling it Doge department. I guess it's just called Doge because that's repetitive. It's the Department of Government Efficiency.
Right.
And yet it's like not doing that. So far it's creating all these problems.
Correct.
And he is claiming that he saved the government $115 billion.
Yeah.
Where's the evidence? Where is
Where?
it? Can you go buy us some eggs, please?
Literally.
Because there's
And
no eggs.
also, where is the evidence that you saved the government any of that money? And also, where is the evidence that it's gonna make, even if you did, that it would make its way back to any of the people it actually needs to make its way back to?
Yep.
Also,
I don't think that's the
point?
goal. I don't. They say that, but I don't think that's.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you keep saying that that's the goal. Okay, then great. Show me that even once. It's also like if you're saving $115 billion, how is it possible that you are also telling me we don't have enough money to for student loan forgiveness? How are you telling me that you also are not finding enough money and it's impossible? It's a dream. We can't do it for universal health care. But you saved $115 billion?
No,
it's just like my bad for thinking that people had critical thought. My bad. Like, honestly, sorry.
Well, we don't have a Department of Education, so,
You're right.
That's what can we expect? It's just really, I'm so annoyed with Elon Musk in general now just because I'm tired of his face and I'm tired of hearing about him. All of this, just really, really over it. But watching that interview and this sympathetic Fox News being like, oh, basically like, oh, you're just like this poor victim that's just trying to help us. In what world is a billionaire just out of the kindness of his heart giving up his valuable time and energy to I just want to help a country that wasn't
not his country.
Yeah, well, it apparently is now, but he can't be the president here, and so it makes it feel like, okay, I'm buying this country so that I can put myself as president,
literally,
and just taking over and then saying, I don't know why you guys don't like me. It's so weird. It's so weird that we don't like a billionaire that nobody voted for. Nobody voted for to put into any kind of office, who is now taking over everything and keeps having judges, luckily, try to shut down what he's doing, although then they keep bypassing it. But I'm over
why
him.
would anyone think that someone who has $321 billion help anyone? Like, he has not redistributed his wealth in any way, shape, or form. He had the president do a commercial for his cars because the stock was so low.
Things like that, the part of me that gets secondhand embarrassment, just like watching that, I was so deeply embarrassed for America. But it was the same vibes in that interview, and just knowing that there are so many people watching Fox News, watching that interview, just going, this poor man, he's just this sweet, he's just going out of his way to do these things for us. What? Why? Show me the evidence that this is something that he's doing out of the kindness of his heart, and show me what he's actually doing for anybody. And like you said, he's got pay off our debt then. If there's so much debt, then go ahead and pay it off. If that's what you really care about, if that's what you want, and you're just a selfless person and you're this selfless billionaire, then show it. I don't know.
He could literally give $1 billion. Actually, he could probably give, I know, as I'm doing this, I'm getting less and less confident. He could give at least $500,000 to everyone in this country and still have money for himself. That's my guess. I don't know. I made that up.
I'm going with it. Sounds great.
Let's say $100,000, and I don't think he would even notice, to every person in this country. Right? Let me calculate, actually. How many people are in the U.S.?
He could at least give $1. I don't know. Not sure.
Okay, let's see. How many people? There's 8 billion people.
I love that earlier was a story about how math was not going well for you and now we're sitting having to
This is why.
But we have calculators. This is why we have calculators.
Okay, 340 million people in the U.S. So
just divide that by $1 billion.
1, 2, 3. Putting $1 billion.
This is exciting. We should have a sound effect going.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
So, if he wanted
based on our calculations,
if he wanted to give, oh wait, I fucked it up, guys. Hold on. This is also really embarrassing because I know someone is at home doing the mental math.
They've already done it. They've already done it.
They've already done it. And listen,
honestly, somebody else has already done all of this. If we Google it, which is what I'm gonna.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I think I should have done it the reverse way. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He could redistribute his wealth, and he doesn't. Every single day he doesn't. Every single day, actually, instead, he decides that he wants to find a way to make more money.
Yeah, this is what I thought. His estimated net worth of $437 billion. If it were divided equally among all Americans, each person would receive roughly $1,300.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
$1,300 is like what we got from the government during COVID. We got $1,200. We got less than that from the government. And his personal wealth could do that.
Yeah.
To every single person. And that includes people who are in the 1%.
But what's really interesting, and this isn't on our outline, but I just saw something recently. There's an actor... Oh, God, what is his name? Anyways, he's an actor over in the UK, and he did this. He was a part of some either, like, documentary or experiment or something. And he basically formed his own debt. What do you call it when you buy other people's debt? Basically, like a debt, like where you take over someone else's debt. And
okay, yeah.
Yeah, and for £100,000 of his own money. He was able to purchase like $9 million worth of debt and cover, I think it was, maybe I'm overdoing that number, but it was like a large amount of debt. I think I just way over, maybe it was like 9 million, but just goes to show there's also strategies like if he's actually looking to help, there's other things you can do. Jimmy's watching this now like, wow, they're sitting there having to Google all of these things, but
listen,
I don't know. The whole billionaire thing already bothers me, but then you have this billionaire who's president now. Not Trump. That's actually not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other one who's crying because nobody likes his cars anymore. And
it's always a guy who markets himself as an alpha male that cries very much about the state of where men are. It's the same shit with Andrew Tate. Literally, he's built an entire career off of complaining about how it's hard to be a man.
Another sign that the U.S. is just headed toward absolute, I mean, not that we're not in it a lot, but just we're really not looking good, guys, because the shit stain that is Andrew Tate is now back in the news and back in the U.S. and back on all the podcasts. Everything that comes out about, you know, Elon or even about him, even Kanye, these little pop culture things, is getting really depressing because it's showing signs of us just continually devolving over and over and over again. I know you watched that. Wasn't an interview or a podcast with Andrew Tate recently?
It was a podcast that he did, and there were like a ton of clips that went up from that podcast. That guy who does that podcast also had oh my god, I see his face in my head, and I'm subscribed to him on YouTube, and he my dog's tongue is just like resting on my foot, and it's really weird and creeping me out. What are you doing? David, is it Palnick?
I don't know.
Something? I don't know. You would know him if you saw him. But he also had him on as well. And in that interview, the host learned about so the host had voted for Trump, and then his name was David something, and I feel like such a silly goose for not remembering. David Pakman. Oh my god. Okay, so David Pakman. David Pakman was on that guy's podcast as well, and David Pakman was literally teaching him about tariffs, and that was a clip that went viral and David literally said in the clip, he was like, please, 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 I'm begging you to please clip this, because other people need to know this also, and that's where he explained that the tariffs were not going to affect the companies, they were going to affect citizens.
In the way, yes, yep.
So that's what this podcast host is bringing to the table. Nothing. And it just feels like he's not really qualified to be having these kinds of interviews. And then he platformed, again, someone like Andrew Tate, who does not need to be platformed literally
absolutely insane.
Ever. Literally ever. Anyway.
Disturbing. Disturbing. Yeah, that's automatically red flag. Well, maybe he can collab with Gavin Newsom on a podcast and they can invite all the worst people on it together.
Yeah, all the worst people they know.
That brings us to our next and last break before we get to our last few stories. We're going to talk about the escalation in Gaza, and Alyssa is going to tell us about a really cool news story that I personally can't wait to hear more, pertaining to pregnancy.
Yeah.
I said that like I'm not pregnant. That's not why.
No one is pregnant.
Let me just make that very clear.
No one in this podcast is pregnant.
Maybe Jimmy. We don't know.
Maybe Jimmy. Oh.
I miss Jimmy.
I miss him too.
We love Jimmy.
Honestly, what is he doing tonight?
That can't be better than this.
What can't be better than this?
You mean this morning? Early in the morning.
Yeah.
Obviously.
What are you busy?
Right?
Unbelievable. Would you like to be one of the cool people who can prove they were supporting this podcast right from the beginning? Well, you can. Head over to linemerch.com. That's linemerch.com and pick up some Founders merch for The Line as a podcast that will only be available for a short time and features the rough draft drawn logo that soon will be updated to look less like it was drawn by a 3-year-old. That's linemerch.com.
We're back.
Welcome back.
So, Alyssa, actually, do you want to, like, kind of switch things around and get to your story? And then we
Sure.
can jump to the... Or maybe because it's a better one, maybe we end with that one. Maybe
Okay.
that's... Sorry, I'm real-time conversations here. Because now that I'm thinking about it, this story is not
Horrible.
great. Not great at all. Also, unsurprising. We know how Jimmy feels about the voters pertaining to this situation, which is, I think, similar to how we feel, too.
Yeah.
But yes, Israel has resumed military operations in Gaza, breaking the ceasefire in place since January 19th. Who's surprised?
Who's
At least
shocked?
500 Palestinians have been killed since the resumption of attacks, including over 200 children that we know of. Humanitarian aid has been blocked since March 2nd, exacerbating the crisis. UNICEF is warning of severe consequences for children and families due to aid stoppage. And Hamas has now fired its first rockets since the ceasefire was broken. International calls for an immediate reinstatement of the ceasefire and an unrestricted humanitarian access have been made, not by the U.S., of course. UN Security Council is expected to hold a briefing on the humanitarian situation. But, yeah, I understand Jimmy's frustration and how he does like to talk specifically to the people that, I guess, the non-voters who were saying, you know, well, due to their, what's the word I'm looking for here? Their morals, basically. They were saying, I can't morally justify voting for either of our candidates that we had at the time. But to me, it's just really difficult to understand that, because even then, this is what I thought would happen. I mean, now, not only is the headline that everything is horrific in Gaza. Not that it wasn't before, but it's not gotten better. One could argue worse, ever since Trump put out that AI video where he just announces. Because, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris was never going to put out an AI video saying she wants to turn it into, you know, we at least had a chance at it not being, you know, like freaking golden idols of somebody all over and saying we're going to turn it into a vacation zone for billionaires. Because not only now do we have this headline, we have that headline and Department of Education getting shut down, Voice of America getting shut down. The economy, wow, where's the amazing economy, you guys? Where is it? You said it was going to happen day one. America's back in business. It's back in the business of a bankrupt, you know, oligarch, basically, at this point, which is a wild sentence to say. But I don't know. It's really sad. It is heartbreaking. You think about the actual people and lives that are being impacted in real time by all of this, not just in the way that we are, you know, obviously we're having to like live in this reality, but then the actual wars that are happening and the people that are losing their lives right now. I'm honestly furious about it that we got to this point and that there's, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of hope for anything happening in the Middle East right now. But what are your thoughts about all of that, other than obviously it sucks?
I was talking about this earlier today, about just like people's stress levels now and how like there has been conflict and Palestinians have been fighting for quite literally the right to live for 80 years.
To exist.
Yeah, like, and it feels so different now because we see it in a different way. Like, we can literally see, like, I think, like, having TikTok exist has made it even feel closer to home in a way where there are people who are, you know, posting videos and you have these real, like, human emotion, human connections with people, and like you can actually see these real people, these real families, and it's like, how are you, like, it's frustrating to know that we had a shot at maybe something different, and to have people get so fooled to think that this would be a better choice is so infuriating, because first of all, how could you believe that? How could you possibly believe that, like, it just feels foolish to me. And a lot of the time, like, with this most recent election, it was like, just for a moment, please play chess and not checkers. Please just think about the long game that you're playing. Like, I understand that people were not pleased with with what the decisions that Biden was making, and then they were not pleased with how Kamala was talking about it either. But play the long game, at least. Like, you at least could have, like...
Or at least give a shit about the genocide that's being attempted here in the U.S. against trans people. Like,
right.
There is a certain point where, and this is obviously the pragmatist in me, where I'm just like, can we focus on real time, like, what's going to happen? Like, what's not just what feels good, like what you can handle with your vote and what makes you feel good. That was not a fun vote to cast. Right. It's not like I was super excited about that, you know? But there's just part of me where it's like, why are we not just looking at how this actually impacts things here and now and the choices moving forward? And I mean, look at where we're at. It's absolute shit. And I think that's the other thing for me. It comes back to, could you not care enough about how it's going to impact everyone here too?
Right.
I don't know. Because it's the whole, like, putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help anybody else. Like, how are we supposed to help anybody else or even have a chance of it if we're not, if we're just floundering over here like we absolutely are? I mean, we're at the point where the most impact we're having is people going and lighting Teslas on fire. Like, that's our big, like, fuck you, because our own other politicians that are supposedly on the left, which that's a joke, are not doing shit. They're just all watching this happen.
Yeah. It's really kind of embarrassing. And I don't know. And also, it just feels like for a lot of the people in the U.S., they're not, for people who are white people, honestly, and at a minimum straight presenting, they're just going to look at this and say this is a Trump presidency like the first time, and everything's fine, and they're going to make it through these 4 years, and they're not going to care. The only difference the only thing that will make a big enough difference is if you hit them where it hurts, which is the wallet.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing that I think will get it through people's heads, that this is not normal and this is not okay. I don't know how else.
Right.
So part of me is like any of those, like any humanitarian cause is like at the bottom of the list for so many of these people, because it literally does not affect them. They just don't care.
Yeah, and that's what's sad, is that it's, by the time it impacts those people, it's already
you can only imagine.
Yeah. Yep.
What it's like for everybody else.
But we'll see. We'll see how this amazing economy, all the eggs that we're now having to beg other countries for.
Right.
When that was like, when we said we wanted the price of eggs to be lowered, we didn't mean zero, because now we can't even buy
because
eggs.
we can't get them.
It's wild. I'm over it. But do you want to share with us your news story? And then I think we have time if you wanted to read some of the questions that we got from your Instagram before we maybe save some of them for the bonus show. Like save, I don't know, if there's some juicy ones or something. But
okay. Good plan. Oh my God, look at us.
Look at us.
Okay, so the story that I found that I wanted to share was coming from NBC. There's more older women becoming first-time moms amid U.S. fertility rate declining. So for the first time since 2023, there are more births among women 40 and older than there are teenage girls.
That is wild.
Isn't that interesting? And the overall reason is because the younger population of women are having fewer children. And the
excellent news,
right?
I think
it's a decline of 14% since 1990. That's a lot.
Wow,
that is actually really significant. And so it's interesting to see, and we're having a record low number of teenagers giving birth, which is
now,
great
are
news.
birth rates in general down, or
yes.
Oh, okay, so that part is like less of the vibe probably that the conservatives are looking for, because they want everybody to be fruitful and multiply. But if people are waiting and having children later, when which I think about the fact that, like, my mom was 23 when she had me. A lot of women were much younger, and this is not to shame anybody for whatever choices they make, but
oh my God.
Wow, if I had kids at 23, not
I
good,
don't.
not good. Poor kids, like they would not go well. I love that, and I understand also a lot of this is more information. Women are able to get better access to better health care, and we don't really have that privilege as much here. And so this is something we see more of in, like Europe. But being able to wait until you're older and you kind of have figured out like the direction your life is going and all of that. I don't know if that impacts you, like this thinking about like, am I having kids? Am I not having kids? And like feeling like, or thinking about, this almost
The timeline.
real clock that we have that
I think
men
about
don't
that
really have.
for sure. I think about it a lot because I'm not sure if I want to have kids, and part of the reason why I stay on the fence of that is because I just like don't really know what the world's going to look like in general, but also
Right.
because I don't want to pressure myself into finding a partner that, like, I had this conversation with a friend of mine literally this morning who's freaking out that she's 31 and single, and she's like, I need to be able to find a partner immediately because I want to be able to have kids and I have no time. I'm running out of time. And I was like, because what she's worried about is she doesn't want to be like on her last legs while her kids are in their 20s. Like, she wants to be around through like longer. And but I was like, listen, I would so much rather, because you can have kids later in life now. It's not super easy, and it like is gonna require a different situation around you, but you can do it. It's not impossible. Thankfully, to advancements we've made in science and all this kind of stuff. I would so much rather raise kids in a home with parents who are an example of a healthy relationship and healthy that does so much more for your children than it ever will to marry someone that you obviously settled for, that you don't like that much. That's not a good example of like a healthy, balanced relationship, and could potentially make parenting a fucking nightmare. And then you want to raise kids. Like, I would rather have my parents be around for less time, but have them teach me like a beautiful lesson in finding a partner and what partnership looks like, what companionship looks like, versus being in a household with parents where I'm like, do these people even like each other? And then like it's a traumatizing scenario, you know?
Totally. Or at least like have your life together so much that you don't need to depend on being in a relationship with her.
Absolutely.
I know some women that go off and they decide. I also saw the coolest thing. I wish I could find the news story. I mean, this was a few months ago, of women that are now having platonic relationships to raise kids together, where they
so
are,
cute.
and they have community where they have like uncles and, like father figures, that basically they like, share a household, so they share the bills and all this. They're doing the things that you would do with a romantic partner, minus all the romantic stuff that oftentimes, as you pointed out, can be kind of the trauma or the chaos. Instead, I'm very interested to see over time how those kids do and how that really, like, how that works. But I mean, I think that's cool. I think people having the autonomy, having the ability, having the choice and the freedom to create the family that they want in the way that they want to, that's only going to be a better thing. And I think the older that you are, the more you're established in life, the more access you have to solid community, education, career, all of those things. Obviously, that's going to make things better for yourself, for the kid, for everybody. And so I love that. To me, what's exciting there is that less teen girls are having babies, because it they don't know. I mean, I guess, what are the stats you would know on how often that's like they're deliberately getting pregnant, and versus how often it's what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. I don't actually know the number, but I have in this article, it says that in 1990, adolescents accounted for almost 13% of births, and in 2023, they only made up for 4%. And the fertility rate for girls ages 10 to 14 dropped from
That's crazy.
Yeah. Dropped from 1.4% to almost 0, which is great news. These are 2023 numbers, and I'm curious to see if there's any change in those numbers during this presidency. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we're dealing with a fetus. So.
Yeah, right. So I'm curious to see what this change is. But that 14% that from 1990 to now
Yeah.
is the overall birth rate has dropped
gotcha.
14%.
I'm sure a lot of that has to do, especially when we look at the teen pregnancies, with education surrounding, not to say that I think that the government has gotten better at, sex ed necessarily, but just access to information is there now. So learning things about birth control, learning things about sexual health, I think a lot of that has become less of a taboo thanks to effort made toward sex education and all of that. People doing what you do. I think that's a huge thing. If a teen girl can come across your content and have some of these myths and taboos addressed, we should be seeing a decline in teen pregnancies because of that. So
one would hope.
I'm happy.
One of the things that I feel like I had to teach my adult friends when I learned it, because I didn't learn it until I started doing this kind of work, is that Plan B or emergency contraception won't work if you're already ovulating. Like if you're in the ovulation phase of your cycle.
And that's a big thing to know. If you don't know that, then you think you're okay.
Yeah.
Then you shouldn't.
And you're not. And if you're not tracking your cycle, you might not even know that you're in the ovulation phase and you've already ovulated, and it's not going to work. And also, most over-the-counter Plan B doesn't work if you're over 165 pounds. Which is... Are you kidding?
How is that helpful?
Yeah. It's not that it won't work, but it's less effective. There is one, I think, called Ella that is more effective for up to like 220, something like that. But it's one of those things where, like, once you're aware of that, if you have to go to the pharmacy to get an emergency contraception, they should be able to give you one that is effective for your weight.
But you have to know to ask.
But you'd have to know that. You'd have to know. And just in case anyone is listening and they ever come across this, if you are concerned about preventing a pregnancy, or like you had an oopsie or whatever, and you're concerned about taking a hormone, or the weight range doesn't work for you, or you're ovulating, another emergency contraceptive is the copper IUD. So if you are in a pinch and that is somehow more accessible to you, that's the other thing, is like getting an appointment.
You can go get that. Okay,
you can get the copper IUD, and I think it's within 72 hours it'll still prevent a pregnancy, because sperm lives in your body for up to 5 days.
I hate that fact.
Yeah.
So much.
I hate it so much. So, all of those things within 72 hours will help prevent that pregnancy. And if for whatever reason you do get pregnant and you find out early enough, you can also get Plan C, which is abortion pills, through the mail. In most states, you can still get it. So anyway, that's your little PSA.
So good.
For this episode.
We love to hear that. Spread the word. But yes, that's ultimately it's that sort of information that's going to help families, actually. It's going to help the outcome for kids. It's going to help everybody. Also, a lot of women that, are able to decide when they want to become pregnant, they can wait and later on have the kids that they want to have, as opposed to maybe getting stuck in a situation where they have to carry a pregnancy as a teenager, and then they don't, they're unable to get the education they want, then they can't get the job they want, then they can't go on to create the life that they want and have maybe more kids than they would have wanted to have before. So I think that conservatives are not, I know that they're not caring about all these other aspects that go into family planning, and how a lot of it is to give women access to actually create and have families just on their own time, which God forbid a woman want to decide that for herself.
Yeah. And I think it's becoming more and more clear to me that many conservative men, maybe just conservative people in general.
Good Lord, the ones we've been talking to lately on Shoot.
Oh my God, they're so bad. But they genuinely don't believe that women can make their own choices, which is like, what?
About anything.
About anything.
Yeah.
Like this was part of that whole Andrew Tate interview. He was saying that women can't make their own choices. They don't know when they should get married. They don't know when they see a partner that should be like suited for them. They don't know.
Holy shit.
Like literally, like we have 3 brain cells, which is so funny, because then I think about the load of work that is sort of like thrust upon, like, who taught Andrew Tate how to do laundry? Who taught him how to cook? Who taught him how to clean a house? Which all of those things are typically things that like a mom would maybe hopefully teach their kids. And those are actual life skills I could give a fuck if you know how to engineer something that, like, whatever. You can learn how to do that and go to school and learn how to do that. Your life skills, women teach life skills. So you're going to tell me that women don't know how to make decisions. You don't know how to wash your fucking underwear. Sorry.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, like,
but that's because they want them to do it for them. Like, they don't
right.
want to have to.
Yeah, they don't want to have to learn. And
Right.
also, like, obviously there are women who are like engineers and are brilliant and do amazing things. Have you ever seen the video where it was like a day in the life without inventions by women?
Oh, yes. Yes. Everybody should go check that out.
I love that video because it's like flat bottom shopping bags invented by a woman, dishwashers invented by a woman, the technology behind video calling systems invented by a woman. We wouldn't be doing this right now.
Know about that wasn't stolen by men, and they were credited for it.
And there's lots more, but anyway.
I think a lot of that also goes back to the religious roots. Of course, I like to take it back there, of being told that you are not capable of making decisions for yourself, therefore God. So you should have a God decide God should lead your life. You don't get to decide your own morals. You don't get to decide anything. And these men are just trying to play that out over women, basically. Well, you can't make decisions for yourself, so we need to do it for you. You're just not capable. It's really disgusting. And the problem is, I think that sort of rhetoric, you teach that to enough women and they will believe you and go with it, which is why I do think we have so many women turning to these traditional conservative values, because they do want to outsource it. They're like, well, fine, I don't want to make decisions. It's too much, because they're not supported to be their own individual people that get to make decisions and know how to carry the weight of that and do that for themselves. And so you have these women that are happy to outsource that sort of thing to the Andrew Tates of the world and say, well, yes, I do want you to just decide and be everything for me so that I don't have to do this. Whereas if we just were teaching all humans that you are able to be responsible for yourself, you're able to make good choices, you're able to gain knowledge and information about the world around you, to be successful, you can do this. That's the messaging we need, not, you can't do this, so I'm going to do it for you. And then I'm going to rule over you.
It's that exact thought process that is also the reason why I have a problem with people who, women who want men to lead in relationships and like talking about that like it's not super patriarchal still. Like, I see it even in what's been a strange experience for me is I see women who have careers, who have like a relatively balanced view on gender roles, but then they still really want a man who's going to lead. And at the end of the day, it's like, whatever you want is what you should do. And it's actually not my business at all. Not my circus, not my monkeys. If that's what you want, fine.
Sure.
But I want to, every time I hear someone say that, I want to ask them, like, what do you mean by that?
Right.
Because you sound like you're asking for a dad. Like, you sound like you're asking for a dad or a boss.
Yep. Yeah.
Which, you are a grown woman. You don't need that.
Right. I think that's my problem with it, too, is just this because obviously there's certain things that some person in the relationship is going to be better at. But my husband and I have, like, he always says, he's like, somebody, like, if it's something somebody needs to be in charge of, let's just pick who's in charge of this. Like, when we go to the grocery store, when we go to Costco, my brain, goodbye. I just follow him around and I like try the samples, and he is the one that decides, because he does most of the cooking, and he's, he cares more about what kind of olive oil and the harvest date and stuff that I don't know anything about. So he takes control there. However, when we go to Publix and we're checking out, because I was a nanny, I am really house manager. I do the self-checkout, and like he knows to step back. People probably think that he's like being a jerk and just standing there watching me, but I'm like, please don't do this, because inevitably anytime he tries to help, something gets double scanned or doesn't, So like then so it's just, I think that a relationship is two individuals that can take turns being in charge of different things, but you have the whole point is not to say, well, in general, I just can't make decisions, so you're in charge here. That's ridiculous. Otherwise, you're going to have a shitty your relationship isn't going to be what it could be, because your relationship could have the best of each of you. Instead, you're just going to have the best of one person.
Right.
And all of their failings, too. And so good luck with that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, yucky. Do you want to
Yucky.
yucky. Do you
Yucky.
want to read some of our questions before we head over into our bonus show where I'm gonna talk about why my husband and I call each other Cadis?
Oh my God.
Finally, because now we have time.
Okay, so let's see. This is this is from a woman named Erica Sams on Instagram. And she's asking, from the perspective of a woman, ways to take back your power after living in compliance with religious expectations for most of your life, which I feel like sort of ties into the conversation we were just having.
Yeah, it totally does, actually. Ways to take over or to take back your power. You know, I think it's a big part is just learning how to trust yourself. So I think it's noticing first areas in your life where you already trust yourself. Like, there are things we all have, even if it's just like, I trust myself to pick out which skincare products I want to use. I trust myself to drive this car to go to this place. Like, start noticing where you trust yourself, why you trust yourself, and then bring those into new areas of your life where you haven't trusted yourself before. Obviously, therapy is also an amazing tool, I think. Recovering from Religion is a great organization. Yeah, I also love, we were talking about it on Chewed Gum the other day, Amy Cuddy, who talks about, like, the power of presence and just how to, like, show up and fully be yourself. And I think that's something a lot of women are told not to do, not to take up space, not to be big. And you love to talk about affirmations or, you know, encourage people to do those, which I'm sure is another thing that can be implemented here. But I, like, to me, like, even just the body language, because I feel a little bit more okay. You were talking about the high fives and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, just learning to show up and take up space, whether that's literally taking up space or, you know, taking up space in a conversation. Can't wait for the comments on this episode saying that I was interrupting Jimmy when he wasn't even on here. You know, things like that. I think those are good ways to take back your power and also just getting to know yourself. Because a lot of time when you've had your power stolen from you, you've had to make yourself so small and you've had to betray so many parts of who you really are that you don't even know yourself. So, I don't know. I remember when I first left high control religion, I just took myself on dates. I would, like, literally go take myself to see a movie because I just wanted to see, what movie am I going to pick if nobody else is here? What snack am I going to get if I don't have to share it with somebody else? What am I, like, who am I and how do I show up without other people and without the judgments and all of that? So
I love that advice. Like, actually diving into things that you actually like figuring it out. And I think that's also, even, like, I just grew up in, like, a run-of-the-mill Roman Catholic house, and so it was not a high control, like, situation. But even just transitioning from my 20s into my 30s, I really had a moment of, like, I actually am not sure what I like. Like, I started to think about what I liked as a kid before I felt, like, so heavily influenced by the people around me. And I remembered that I really liked reading when I was a kid. I burned through books. Like, I literally, faster than my mom could take me to the library, I would burn through books. And then I kind of, like, over time, like, that fell by the wayside. You're, like, in high school and in college, and, like, you're definitely not staying in and reading all day. At least I wasn't. And so now I've found my love for reading again, and it's become a big part of my life again. So even if there are things that you liked when you were a kid, if you grew up in a very high control religion, I don't know if that super applies, but if there are things that you liked when you were a kid,
I think it can, for sure.
Yeah. Like, okay, this is really funny, and I didn't realize this until later. When I was a kid, I played Barbies every day. I loved Barbies.
Girl, we would have Barbies.
The storylines.
That was my favorite. The storylines, setting up the whole. I would spend so much time setting up their, like, home.
Yeah.
It was a whole.
It's the best. It's so much fun. And I realized then as an adult, I really like playing The Sims, which is no more than adult Barbies.
Oh, you're so right.
You know? And then it also, like, when I think about it that way, I'm like, I really like some elements of storytelling. And I think that, like, that can also translate into other hobbies and other things. Anyway, my whole point in saying this is there's lots of ways to get to know yourself and really, like, reinvent and recreate who you get to be now. And so diving into those things and creating new hobbies and new patterns for yourself is really exciting and a new thing that you get to do.
I love that. I think that's really great advice. Like,
yay.
And I think that's something that people just need to do in general too,
Yeah,
no matter
for
how
sure.
you grow up, because you end up betraying yourself in different ways over time, just as you try to fit in or try to do the right thing or try to be what somebody else wanted you to be, and then there reaches a time you have to figure it out.
Yeah,
I love it.
I agree. Okay, let's see. Maybe we'll do one more here, and then we'll go to the
bonus show. That sounds perfect.
Okay, so this one is from Jeff005. How Doge and the new head of SSA are trying to destroy it and privatize it. Did we talk about that?
We didn't, but we can actually. I had it on here. It was just one of the, if we had time. But the good news is that a federal judge has issued a temporary injunction blocking Doge from accessing Social Security Administration systems.
Thank God.
However, do I think that that's going to do shit? I don't think this administration cares about the law. I don't think. We know that they don't. We have a criminal as the president of the United States of America. And he was even talking about, in some interview the other day, talking about, well, there's these corrupt, the judges, someone said, are you gonna adhere to what judges rule? And Donald Trump said, yeah, I'm not gonna not. Basically, didn't answer the question and said something about, but we have these judges that are not good judges and we got to get rid of these judges. Interesting how you just want to get rid of the judges that don't rule in your favor. It's so disturbing. I don't know. I still look at all of this and like, how is this the country I live in? How is this happening? How do we have a president just completely ignoring judges and basically implying to other judges that you need to support what I do or you're out of a job.
Yeah. I feel like
we're all just watching it.
Yeah. The first thing that I remember learning about the American government when I was in like elementary school is that we have a system of checks and balances so that things always stay, things always stay as level as possible. And wow, have we strayed far from that. And it is now we're in a situation where I'm like, I feel kind of helpless and we are watching every check and every balance out the window. So
yep.
I don't even,
not to say that we haven't always had, I mean, the checks and balances didn't really help enslaved people. They didn't really help women, but we have attempted to like check and balance and get to better places. And now we're just like, nope, we don't even want to try.
Not even trying.
So it's so sad. Well, on that note, I feel like we just accomplished something. We did our first episode without Jimmy. I did miss Jimmy a lot, but
we did.
I had fun having a girls' night with you. So next time, we'll see you guys over here on The Line Has a Podcast.
Yeah. I mean, if we're being honest, Jimmy is kind of one of the girls.
Well, obvious. Yeah, that's true. That's why we still miss him.
Yeah. Does this get louder?
It feels like it. It
that was crazy.
Going.
It just keeps going. Yuka made this, right?
He did.
It's nice.
This sick beat.
I love it. Yeah, everyone come to the bonus show. We'll answer some more of these questions and it'll be so great.
We'll reveal all of our deepest, darkest secrets.
Do this little thing.